Live here. Everybody can see and hear us. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to refresh my Twitch page to make sure we are coming through. Yep, we're coming through live. We see it perfectly fine on Twitch. Good morning, David. Good to see you here. Hopefully, you've downloaded the recording for the intermediate Photoshop class with the welcome tablet, and we'll see you on Thursday as usual. But good morning, everybody. We got a bunch of people kind of slowly chiming in here. Yep, I see Ruth Carizu, I think it says. Steve Dorman just dropped in. We got a bunch of the people dropping in, but it's not giving me their names here. So welcome. Share with us where you're from and what the weather is like in your area. We're going to get started here in just about a few minutes. We're going to give everybody a little bit of time to kind of jump in here. And what I will do as well is go to now, guys. The Photoshop Users Group has an official Facebook page. Here it is. It is about how many members we have now? About 32,000 currently. All right. So David Veet says, "Good morning, all." Morning, all. Good morning, Dave. We'll be getting started here in just a few minutes. Share with us where you're from, what the weather was like in your area. We have an exciting presentation today. Got a lot of response on social media for it. Okay, got 5 more people jumping in already. And good morning, everybody. It's good to see you. We got a great presentation. Good morning. So luminosity masking is critical to your photography workflow. Something that I will be teaching in my intermediate Photoshop with the welcome tablet class as well. Good morning, everybody. So I'll give it a couple more minutes, let everybody else kind of jump in here, and we will get started. So here we are, Photoshop Users Group page on Facebook. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to post this into the chat box so that you guys can see it, and you can go to it personally and become a member. So if you're not a member already, definitely become a member. There we are, and I'm going to kind of display it. So there's the link right there. Share that with all your friends to come and share their work and maybe help answer questions or just share your portfolio. Whatever you like to do. It's a very active group. That's our official Facebook page. We also have an official YouTube page. Let me go find it. Let me go to YouTube. And the YouTube page, or do we have it? Well, actually, I'm modifying the YouTube page. But for right now, let me go to where you can find our recordings. Right now it's set up under my channel, and you can see some of the videos here, but this is where it's going to show up. What I'm going to do is I'm redoing the Photoshop Users Group Facebook page, where it's going to be nothing in here but our meetings, our monthly meetings, and Photoshop tutorials. Right now, it's a little bit of a mixed bag of everything. So I would like to hold off and sharing that link with you until I get that set up. I should have it set up by this weekend. It's been busy. I just got in from out of town from Louisville. I was a guest speaker for Wonderfest. And yes, I got caught up in that quagmire of delayed and canceled flights in Dallas, Texas, because storms kept just arriving out of nowhere. So I left Louisville at 12 in the afternoon and didn't leave Texas until about 1:30 in the morning. Didn't get back to San Diego to close to 3, which is basically in Louisville is 6:30 Louisville time, which is where I was originally on. So yeah, it's been a rough couple of days. So I've been spending this week just relaxing. Gotta getting my energy back. All right, everybody's jumping in. We've got another little comment. Good morning from Carlsbad. Welcome. It's Birds by Hummer. Welcome. This is great to have you here. Welcome to the Photoshop Users Group meeting. We do this once a month for the Photoshop Users Group. If you are a 3D enthusiast, we do this every week, every Saturdays for the Blender 3D Users Group. Okay, so any 3D enthusiasts out there want to jump in Saturday mornings, come and join us every Saturdays. Let's see. June Gloom. Yeah, June Gloom. Definitely June Gloom. What's it? May Gray, June Gloom. Yeah, we get that every year.
Gray, June Gloom.
Of course, Robert Pendleton, our guest speaker, and I both live in Oceanside. We're about 7 to 8 miles inland. So we get sunny skies all the time. So whenever anybody asks me where I'm from, I basically tell them I'm from the place where the weather sucks everywhere else in the world. San Diego. And I'm sorry, I've got some photographers. Yeah, we got photographer friends, Robert, that are moving to Hawaii for retirement. And it's like, no, the weather here is way better. Why move to Hawaii? Cool. All right. So, gosh, you guys are going to learn a lot today. Robert Pendleton, he's a recent friend and an associate of mine. He owns a gallery that I've been involved in, and many other photographers have been involved in. We should see Larry Vogel here today too. Larry's there. He just popped in. All right, Larry just popped in. We got a couple people that just popped in. Share where you're from, what the weather likes in your area. Hello, all. Andy in Lakeside. I do not always get to join you all, but it's an honor to have you here today. Okay, so the Photoshop Users Group is made up of a lot of professional photographers, as well as amateurs and beginners and advanced people and intermediate people. It's a mixed talent here. So many of our photographers are constantly shooting. They're working, so they can't always attend on a regular basis, and that's why I do these once a month, so that way the chances of getting everybody together will be better. The schedule is once a month as opposed to like a once a week deal. Larry Vogel is here. Vogel Art. Larry is highly involved with Robert's gallery, and I'm going to let Robert talk more about that and about himself. It's Larry Vogel and Barbara Runge's here. A lot of people here should with names. Okay, so let's see who else here. Someone else just jumped in.
They must have activated something in here.
Okay. Yeah, we got more people. Got 12 more people just jump in. It's going to be a good attendance today. A real good attendance today. Okay, everybody. I'm going to give the link to this Twitch site here and send this out to your friends to come and join us. So all your photographers and digital art friends, I'm going to put the link into the chat box in Twitch. This is a direct link to come join us to Twitch. Let me go ahead and display that link for you real quick. There it is. So just copy and paste it. Go to Facebook, Twitter, Blue Sky, whatever social media you have, and share that with everybody to come and join. This presentation is being recorded as I speak. Twitch automatically does it. So this presentation will go on to the Photoshop Users Group YouTube site. I'm getting that formulated once again for those who just joined in, so I will have the link to you guys later. Now, everybody who's joined in through Eventbrite to say that they're going to come and join the meeting, you're automatically going to be placed on the Photoshop users group mailing list, so you're notified about exhibitions and so forth. So let's see. So okay, so you guys got the site here for Facebook, all right? And then I'm going to do it again for those of you who did not know that the Photoshop users group has an official Facebook page, and we're the large. Now let me tell you just a little bit more about who we are. Um, we are an official, and I mean that strongly. We are an official sanctioned Adobe Photoshop users group. There's very few groups that Adobe recognized as an official Adobe user group. We're one of them. We are the largest Photoshop users group in the country. We're about close to 5,000 members. Okay. I just gave you a link to the active page for Facebook. That's 32,000. That's 32.1 thousand. Yeah, people. Very active, great group, a talented artist. Come there and share your work. And I usually go through the site to look for whose work is very dynamic, and I'll often post it up here in the banner. So who is this here? This work is by Paul Faust, right? This is the recent one I just posted up there. So post your work, share your portfolio, your techniques, help people out. This is a great little site to be a part of. All right. As you can see, I just started my welcome tablet classes. They're 5-week classes. I'll talk more about those later. But I tell you what, let's kind of get on with things here. I'm going to take off this little post it there. And Robert, I think you're going to find this a very interesting presentation, everybody. So I'm going to let Robert talk about who he is and the gallery he's involved with. I'm going to post a link for everybody to sign up for the next gallery show. I'm going to go grab it real quick. And Robert, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
All righty. So,
and I'm going to share your screen now. Cool. You're live.
Okay, well, there we are. I titled the talk Luminosity Hacker. That's me, Robert Pendleton. I have probably more material than I need. So if you give me a warning about 5 or 10 minutes before the break, I'll make sure we get to the end.
All right.
So let's see here. I developed an interest in photography at an early age. Here's a picture of me with one of my first cameras, a Brownie, Kodak Brownie, and I've got my hat. At the age of 10, I was so interested in photography that I wanted to get an SLR camera and a darkroom. I was born really close to Christmas, December 23rd, and I was a little bit tired of getting presents that said happy birthday, Merry Christmas on them. So I kind of leaned into it and I said, well, hey, why doesn't everybody in the family just sort of pitch in? And I'll just buy one present, which is the tools I'm going to need to do photography. And so I was able to build a darkroom in the second bathroom of our family home, which kind of looked like this. And it was I was thinking about building a darkroom in the garage, but that was just too much. And I finally realized that if I just blocked the light coming into the bathroom there, I had a nice little place to hang my negatives and prints to dry. There was enough room in this sink to set an enlarger and some trays. And by closing both doors, I got a darkroom. So that was my darkroom. And I was experimenting and self-taught. And you learn very quickly that there's a number of steps that you need to go through in order to produce an image. You've got your camera, which you have to do the exposure and development properly, end up with a negative. And from a negative, you then go to the darkroom, which you expose again on photographic paper. You develop that, you get a print. And then there's some additional steps that you have to go through if you actually want to create a work of art. And so I came to photography kind of with this background, like you have to do all these steps. And I think that was helpful. And of course, you guys, you're all aware of that. And the digital world has changed things. And just as an aside, I think that the revolution in photography that happened when we went from analog to digital was far more disruptive than the one we're undergoing now with the addition of artificial intelligence. May just be my opinion, but we've had these big disruptions before. I was kind of schooled on how to do photography in this way, and I did it with my junior high yearbook and a little bit in high school. And then I got very busy with my career, and photography became something that I just kind of did when I was on vacations. I was also very interested in art, and so when I would travel, I'd go to art museums, and I would take my camera, and that was kind of a form of relaxation for me. I lived in Sweden when my junior year of college, and of course I didn't have a darkroom access there, so I started taking slide films then, and I had these Kodak mailers where I could just stick my film in the mailer. It would actually get delivered to my parents, and so my parents had this weird experience of following my journey through Europe through slides that I took along the way. I also went for an entire year not really knowing what I was doing and getting any of my results. But I had my cameras, and I had a Canon F1 system that I used, and I was doing primarily slides and as more and more color, not really printing up too many things. But in 1992, after finishing my training, I got a MD and a PhD, and my photography equipment was stolen. Digital photography was just starting to come in, and I wasn't real happy with that transition. I had a lot of film cameras because when film cameras first became popular, they were a little too complicated for people to use, so they gave a lot of them to me. I had a lot of film cameras around. I would buy digital point and shoots, and I took images, but they just were kind of sitting on memory cards. Well, one of the museums that I went to in Chicago, I found this book. It was in my training, and it was called Eat Your Art Out Chicago. And in that book was basically little vignettes about venues where you could display your art if you were a local artist. So most of the venues were coffee shops and restaurants, but a few of them were physicians' offices. And I kind of decided back then, if I ever build my own office, I'm going to integrate space into it, gallery space into it, where I can display the work of local artists. So fast forward to 2008, I bought this building, 4,000 square foot building in Oceanside. It was just basically an empty concrete box. It was newly constructed, and with the help of a friend of mine, Gabriel Harrison, who's an architect, and his parents are actually a very well-known artist, Helen and Newton Harrison. He was one of my best friends growing up, and he lived right up the street. Who grew up in La Jolla. So got him to help me design the office. And I'm gonna show you a little video. I didn't make this video for us. I actually made it to just sort of document what was there. I now have sold my practice, and I'm the landlord, and I go in once in a while to set up these exhibitions. And so I'm just gonna play this. You can see these art niches there. Actually one of Stephen's pieces. When you come through the entryway, here's an purpose-built art niche, another, couple more here. Sing around, there's a lot of different colored paints on the wall. In the examination and testing rooms, you can see some of my work here on the walls. I don't open up these spaces during receptions, special equipment. You can you can see kind of the size and scale of my pictures that we're going to go over. You can hear me grunting and groaning a little bit. Coming into the hallway, here's some more of the art niches and the wall space that we use. You might recognize some of the people's work here. Here's a couple of my wife's prints, a hummingbird and bluebird, birds by Hummer. She's an accomplished bird photographer. Going around some other testing rooms, a couple more of my images. So you get kind of an idea of what it looks like here. We're back in the hallway again. There's an inner waiting room with some aquariums and space for more pictures there. Here's another room for specialized testing. And again, you'll see some of my works up on the wall. And then I'm just going to kind of fast forward here a little bit. Here's another hallway. I went through the exam rooms. I was just documenting more or less the status of the office at that point in time. Another work, another exam room. There's 6 exam rooms total. I'm an ophthalmologist, so this was a minor surgery room. There's a couple more pieces. A lot of them are base-mounted acrylic pieces. Some of them are canvas. A few of them are framed, like that old image there. And then we come back down here. This back hallway takes you back out to the waiting room, and you can see lighted art niches and areas where work is displayed. We don't really need to see the staff bathroom. I can edit this in future, but you get kind of an idea. Here's a break room with more of my work. So I built this, and then I had my first art show, which was actually a bird show of art produced by a friend of mine and fellow ophthalmologist, Blake Shaw. We have room for 30 to 35 prints, and that went on for several months. I think I had another show or two, and then I hung a show of a local artist named Robert Freeman. He does abstract Native American artwork, and the show was really fantastic. He just moved here from New Mexico. It was so fantastic, in fact, that the curator from the Menga Museum found him, decided to do a show of contemporary Native American artists, and they took all my pictures away. So all of a sudden I had bare walls, and instead of looking like art was, a part of your experience as a patient at the office, it looked like bare walls, and an empty warehouse was part of your experience as being a patient. So I very quickly grabbed some memory cards, printed up some images, framed them, stuck them on the walls, and I said, I need to get back into photography. And so I need a camera. So I bought the camera that I kind of always wanted, was a Leica camera. Leica, that was 2009. They'd just come out with a digital camera and said, well, if Leica's going digital, I'm going to go digital too. So I got this camera. I got another hat. I eventually upgraded, got a couple extra lenses, and I started taking pictures. And since I go to art galleries a lot, some of the first pictures were in art galleries. So here was a picture of a shadow of me in a gallery. And with the camera came a copy of Lightroom. And so to me, Lightroom was just, that's going to be my processing. And of course, Photoshop. So I went and bought a copy of Photoshop, and I started fooling around with it and said, well, I can enhance the colors. I can sort of, Photoshop is complicated. I was doing various things with it. And I kind of developed a process, which I'm going to talk about in this more in the second half, the technical aspects of it. But I've kind of split it up into a few steps here. And I've given them names so that it just gives us something to talk about. or a way to talk about it. So I've just called it color supersaturation, color development. I'll sometimes refer to it as colorization or color enhancement, contrast inversion, and combining these things together gives you a way to create single image HDR images. So here's, again, I kind of use my camera more when I traveled. I was actually traveling in Burlington, Vermont. Here's a series that I did early on. I call it Invisible Me. These are long exposures on a tripod, 32 seconds. This is a single image. I triggered the shutter. I'm here in the image for about 12 of the 32 seconds, and then I just jumped out of the image. So it makes me look transparent. And then I've colorized both the highlights and the lowlights to get this sort of color effect. Here's another one called In Case of Fire. It was very dark in the room, so the lowlights had been colorized, and it kind of looks like flames were coming in from underneath the door. Here's another one that's sold a few times called Forced Entry. It was in an apartment building I was living at in Oceanside at the time. Again, I'm the 32-second exposure. I'm in the exposure for about 12 of those seconds. I also had a light that I was shining at the locks, and I continued to shine it on the locks after I jumped out of the way. I've colorized the low lights in the picture to these red and blue and kind of yellow colors, but areas of the picture are normally exposed and have normal color values. This one called Vertigo in Vegas, I'm actually in the image twice. It's a single image. I had to use neutral density filters in order to achieve this and get a long exposure time. So I'd put the shutter on a timer release. I'd sit down, I'd be in the image for about 12 seconds. I just walked over, jumped in the tub, and I was in the tub for another, for the duration of the picture, and then colorized the low lights, and the highlights are processed in a normal way here. This is actually multiple exposures of the same techniques called 7 Shades of Blue in Las Vegas. I've colorized the light coming in from the outside and some of the low lights. There's actually 7 images of me in here. Various spots. I'm laying on the bed. I'm sitting in the chair. I'm sitting on the bed. You can see my head there a little bit. I'm standing at the window. That's a tough one to see. Here, it's very faint. Standing over here in the chair, and so on. So, and here is another image of a shadow. And this kind of shows the color contrast, a little bit, what I'm calling contrast inversion. The white's going to black, and black's going to white. To give you some perspective, this is the image that I started with. So this is obviously a shadow of me on a line on the street. I'll make a copy of the image and colorize it. I use the curves function in order to do that. This is showing a screenshot from when I actually did this. This is how I modified the curved function to get this image. So this is what results. I put those on top of each other. I use the Luminosity blend mode. Sorry, I don't have all of the steps documented here, but we're going to go through. In the end, I'll show you exactly what I do. But I put those on top of each other, did some luminosity masking. Then I went into the levels command and sort of created absolute blacks and absolute whites. I adjusted the middle slider there a little bit, changed the brightness and contrast a bit. And then here was the final cropped image. Call this cracking up. And then if I colorize the image, but don't do the luminosity masking, you can get these kind of insane colors. This is an image of a shadow of me over a picture. One of the, a canvas mount print that I had. This was the canvas mount print. This canvas mount was actually created using that technique I'm going to call color supersaturation. This was the original image. So I went from there to there to there. And finally, kind of the last in the series of self-portraits, this shows what I'm calling contrast inversion. So obviously the light's coming here and hitting me on the right. And you start to see a little bit of the altered or ambiguous depth of dimensionality you can get by doing this. It looks like I've got a dent in my mustache here or something. I like to experiment with long exposures, and this was a long exposure done of the moon, and I'm actually moving the camera. I just happened to have a biplane fly in. So this abstract piece was built that. I can show you a little later, kind of the series I went through to get there. And here's a long exposure of an architectural feature. I like geometry a lot. I've got a lot of pictures about architectural features. And sometimes I'll augment them with lights. Here I traced a laser around this 32-second exposure. And then I did what's called the colorization, where you can see even the laser, which should be a pure source of red light, altered into a spectrum of colors. It's sort of green in here. This one is starting to show some of the ambiguous dimensionality that comes from this. This is just an architectural feature in a hotel with the laser. And here's a more standard photo, although I have clipped the blacks to be absolute and the white to be absolute white. And I've done this super saturation of the sky. Here's a little more extreme example of that super saturation, where it was actually, I think, on the same day, just made the blues much more intense. And here, this one is another architectural feature, shows what I'm calling contrast inversion. And you can see how this altered dimensionality comes in. This is just a flat wall in reality, and there's this is a shadow of this feature here. But it looks like there's a bend in the wall. And then obviously this picture, which shows this altered dimensionality really well. I call this one Escher's Place. This is actually in the fair this year in the section of fine art, face mounted on acrylic, and it's 23 by 28. Sometimes I will tile the images and their reflections here, and it brings out these sort of interesting palette of colors. And again, the sort of ambiguous dimensionality. Here's another piece taken from that series, and another. So it's kind of hard to tell where is up, what's down, and so on. Sometimes I'll do multiple exposures, and using the luminosity masking, you can get some kind of altered reality looking things. I also take pictures. These are architectural features of the inside of the apartment I lived in there. This was all one color, and I've colorized the low lights to be in different palettes, basically. A lot of people see things in this image. Some people see a female shape. There's one called inverted handrail shadows. This is an image that's been colorized, and this was the original image. These are a picture of a shadow on steps at the in Balboa Park. I'm sorry, at the San Diego Convention Center. I was taking some pictures of that. I got home. I thought I kind of like the way it looks better upside down. And I said, really, it looks more interesting up here. So then I cropped it to look like that. It was a little dull, so I made it brighter. But these are very uniform. And then I took these areas, this uniform darkness, and sort of selectively colorized them into this. So, and this piece is done well. obviously very abstract. Sometimes people say it kind of reminds them of music. Here's another one where I've done this selective colorization. This is, again, is a single image. This was the original photograph. I purposely underexpose these to some extent. I don't want to have any area in the picture that's overexposed. But with the process that I'm doing, we're going to pull that information out of the print after we expose it properly, after we develop it, so to speak. So you can see, this is a low resolution, but this spectrum of colors that are developed in these areas, if I zoom into the original photograph, it's just shades of brown. So we've taken selectively the areas that were brown and kind of blown them out into these crazy colors for artistic effect. You know, the structure of the frame when we do photography is as rectangular. You got this, 16:9 or 3:2 type aspect ratio. You can create geometry just kind of using that if you want. I call this one seasickness. This was a steep beach in San Onofre, and by twisting the camera, you get the feeling that this is the horizon, when in fact this is really the horizon, and then created triangles of sky and water, and then we colorized the shadows to kind of make some interest. When you see this picture from a distance, you don't really notice these crazy colors here in the shadows until you get closer. So it's kind of a fun effect. Here's what I've been calling contrast inversion, and it gives you a sense of how this becomes a single image HDR. These are some buildings in New York City. If you look at the original image, I've exposed it so that there's nothing overexposed. I want to get these beautiful colors in the sky, which you can only do by properly exposing the sky. But then we've lost all the detail in the building. There's basically nothing you can be seen in these areas over here at the side and down in here. And once I process the image with that sort of contrast inversion, then you see all these details. And so again, this is just a single image, and but it's a type of single image HDR. Here's some buildings in New York where a single image, again, I took a copy of it, rotated it, and combined them together with the luminosity filter. This was a picture in the LACMA Museum in Los Angeles. Diane van Furstenberg was having an exhibition of her patterns. And the wall was decorated with her patterns over here. The floor was decorated with her patterns, which is here. And then there was actually a mirror going across this way. And this top half is all a reflected image of things that were over here. There was a light coming in, so you can see, because these were at different distances, they look to be different sizes, but this pattern at the bottom is the same as this pattern at the top. There was a bright light here, and I've split that light into a spectrum of colors. And then you can see the contrast inversion where the whites look like they're black here in the reflected areas. I can actually just take a normal picture and without doing anything to it. Here's a couple black and white images that I've created. That was in Oceanside. Here's a sunset in Hawaii. The colors were quite muted, so I just converted it to a black and white. This is a sunset in the Baltic archipelago. Also it's in June when the sun really never goes down, but this is about as dark as it ever gets up in that region during the summer solstice. And then here's just a kid having some fun on the beach in Costa Rica. So I can take this actually, but I alter my photos so much sometimes when I take a photo. This is completely unaltered photo. It's just a picture of the back of a Tesla that had gotten some rain on it. And you can see the reflection in the sky and the raindrops. I haven't altered the colors here at all. This is just the way the picture came out. There's a little bit of color enhancement here, a sunset. But this is some more typical photos. And then my wife has got me interested in bird photography. And so I can start to do a few bird photographs here and there. And I've sort of modified, Leica cameras are great for wide angle pictures, but they're terrible for telephoto pictures. And so a couple of years ago, upgraded my M9 to an SL2S or SL2. Yeah, SL2. Yeah, SL2, SL2S. So I could get a telephoto lens on there. Here's, this is a bird picture, but actually I've modified, done some color modification here, colorization of the sky. This was a cloudy day, and that's the sun. My color palette is not quite so blown out as it was early on. Here's a long exposure done on the streets in Burlington, Vermont. And when I look for different light sources, these are different temperature lights. And you can see some of them came out yellow, some were green, some are blue. These are just enhancements of the natural colors in the light, as far as I can tell. And then I've done this contrast inversion for the background. This was a little earlier photo, but you can see I liked to look into the light. I think maybe people told me not to look into the light when I took a picture, but I do that quite a bit. And you can see the light sort of refracting and reflecting around the edge of this. And the technique brings out details that normally would be lost. And this just looks completely black in the original image. And here's a little more subtle version where this light star, I've enhanced the colors coming out of it. It also gave a little coloration to the background here. These are the mountains in Los Angeles. And I've started to do a technique where I preserve some of the original image and mask areas that have been modified. So here on the edges are the original image. So the majority of this is the modified image. But you can see the modifications only extend to the highlights. And in this area, the way I've done it here, the low lights are preserved. So the flowers and the grass are more or less the same, where in the sky in a couple areas, and the highlights have been modified. And this is just a composite back of those birds and the mountains there. And kind of the color is a little more exaggerated in the mountains. So here we have some contrast inversion of a tree. This was taken in Central Park. Here's another tree image looking into the sun again in Encinitas. I had this on the wall for quite a while until my wife saw a monster in it somehow. So there's a monster face in here somewhere. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. This is called light on grass, just modifying the flare coming out of the light. Here, shows some colorization, and if you will find if you do this technique that you. So I've exposed this so that the highlights are properly exposed and nothing's overexposed. And in the original image, this is all just sort of black. When I do the colorization, most of the colors here are true. The trees are green, grass is green. These houses were kind of a brownish, reddish color. They're they're oversaturated, but they're actual colors that were present in the original image. It doesn't always work that way. Sometimes you'll end up with images where things are distorted. And here the middle tones of the trees are the same. I call this one colors and shadows. The highlights are left untouched. The lowlights are divided into the spectrum of color. Oops. Where were we? And again, the highlights are sort of normally exposed. This area was all dark, very dark, and it's bright, and it seems to be kind of coming out at you. Here's a similar technique done in the desert, Death Valley. So the sky is its normal color. It was that day. The mountains, which were kind of in the shadows, have been modified. I actually used the dissolve on blend mode on a couple of these. You zoom in, you can see it gives it's very painterly, sort of pointillist looking. A lot of times people will say, "I love your painting." And I say, "Well, I don't have any paintings." And they say, "Well, yeah, I just do photography." And they'll say, "Well, I see your photographs and then I see your painting and I really like your painting." I don't have any painting. It was an image to get looking at the sky with the color inversions here. And I look for areas where light has different qualities. And so this image, I've processed the light differently that's coming through the door, through light that's coming through the open door, here through the glass in the door, and then here through the glass in the screen. And then I've left alone the light that's on the inside of the house, and just kind of fiddling around with different ways to process these images. This one I call Broken Window. This was printed up on face mounted on acrylic. You can tell there was a break in the window, and the way it's printed, it actually looks like, and because of the altered dimensionality, it looks like this crack is in the acrylic. And in fact, I had this in a show at the Oceanside Museum of Art, and Larry Vogel was hanging it, and he told me later, he says, "Oh no, it looks like we must have damaged Rob's print." But the title of the piece is Broken Window, and this was actually the original image. So I've lost a little bit of the color of the sky here. I really love these rich colors in the original image, but you can see there's basically the other image is cropped and straightened, but there's basically no information left in these dark areas and down in here in the original print. But in this, you can clearly see what was a lot of detail here, the drapes and the road, and so that's what kind of makes it a single image HDR. That's really nice because then you can use high shutter speeds in your HDR pictures. Here's another example on that trip in the Baltic archipelago. Here's my sons and my oldest son's wife. I call this one Digital Divide. The low light's been colorized. This is what the original exposure looked like. And I wanted to capture all this detail out here. Had I exposed it so that my kids would have been in focus, this would be just a white circle. And so we're able to capture all of the detail in the picture, and it also has this kind of surreal quality to it. Here's a picture done in New York. This is also in the fair this year in the fine arts section. It's like 42 inches long, I think. They've done what I call contrast inversion in the dark areas, and then there's some colorization in the highlight areas. It shows a lot of movement, and then it adds to the depth. Here's a multiple image of my son, and you can see, you kind of get this transparent effect with it. And more recently, I've kind of moved to other ways of putting both the manipulated and the unmanipulated image together. And so this was done in the Broad Museum, an exhibition, and I kind of framed him on this, in this red square, this guy watching the movie. The movie itself is pretty much normally exposed. And then these very, very underexposed areas came out visible with this technique. And I'm using these shapes to help kind of tell a story. Another piece with a lot of movement on Venice Beach. And, you know, your eye is kind of forced to follow along this road in these kind of tumbling geometric shapes. Here's one that's called Angel. This is a road in Death Valley, again, experimenting with the technique and ways of presenting different processing techniques together in the same image. And it helps add to the depth. This was a picture from Pismo Beach, and you can see the color inversion, or contrast inversion rather, and it bringing out the detail here in the low lights. The middle values are pretty much unaffected. The taupe color just continues from one to the next. Here's another picture from Pismo, and this one really, it illustrates the ambiguous dimensionality, and it also illustrates the contrast inversion in a good way. So you see, here's the original image on the outside. It's brightest in the upper left-hand corner and darkest in the lower right-hand corner, but the processed image inset is darkest in the left-hand corner and brightest in the lower right-hand corner. And if we zoom in, you can see that the middle values are pretty much unaffected. So this taupe color of the sand continues from one to the other, but here the dark areas are inverted completely to white. So if you can do it so that you get colors instead of this absolute kind of silvery value. So here's, this is the colorized image, and this was done in such a way that the integrity of the colors has been preserved. So the sky is still blue, the grass is still green, the monument is still white, but it's obviously very different than this image, which was exposed, so that we still get a reasonable sun star. If I had exposed this image in order to get a blue sky, a white monument, the sun would be probably about this big and burning out the entire image, since I'm taking this directly into the sun near sunset. And here's another example of that, and where this sort of this framing kind of have a picture almost within a picture down at La Jolla Shores. It was exposed properly for the sunset, and then you get this extra added piece here. It's almost a picture within a picture of people just enjoying themselves on the beach. And keep fiddling around. Here's some picture done in Hawaii. Back to La Jolla Shores. This was actually multiple images sandwiched along, but we've got almost like a digital signal going across here with these crazy little cubes and rectangles out of Joshua Tree. And then here's where I sort of tweaked that image of the guy on the beach. back to La Jolla Shores more recently. I mean, you can see my color palette is much more subdued than it was in some of the earlier photographs. And then we've got these cubes kind of telling a story, almost like a Rothko-esque blue here. And nice, it was exposed so that you get this nice sun star. I don't know if you're aware of it. For sun stars, it relates to the number of leaflets in the iris diaphragm of your lens, of this particular lens. That's the 24 to 90 zoom. It has 9 leaflets. If there's an odd number of leaflets, you get double the amount of spikes in the sun star. So there's 18 spikes on the sun star with a 9 leaflet lens iris diaphragm. It's one of those little technical details that about your lens that can make a difference in your photographs. I think that was kind of what I had put together for the first part. We can go to a break now, or if we're not going to go to a break, let's see. Are you still?
We can go to a break now. It's about 3 minutes to 11, and we can do a 15-minute break and come back and share the actual techniques on how you accomplished the work.
Yeah. Are there any questions at this point?
Yeah, I'll go on and ask anybody. So far, no questions in the chat, but if anybody has any questions, go ahead and type it in the chat box now. Would love to see them. And while that's happening, I will bring up the 15-minute timer. Yes, we have a 15-minute timer.
So here's my contact information if anybody's interested.
All right. Nice. Then did you send that to me through? Yeah, you did. Okay, I think you did. I think Robert Pendleton, someone microphone is on. No. Did you type that in the chat box?
Your contact on the slide here. Do we still?
Gotcha.
We're still sharing the slides.
Yeah. We are. Go on and put that up there. I will, and also type it in the chat box too, and I will put it onto Twitch.
All righty.
That way everybody can have that information on their system. Okay. And cool. All right. So I have, let me go ahead and copy and paste this. Okay, everybody. Robert Pendleton's contact information. First of all, is his email. As a matter of fact, I'll put them side by side. I think that would be wiser. And we can display them all as one. So how's everybody enjoying the presentation so far?
Is there anybody there?
No, they're here. They are here. So let me put this into the comments. Let's see. There we go. Robert Pendleton. There it is. Okay. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share. I'm going to stop sharing your screen. And I'm going to share my screen with the 15-minute timer and your contact information right below it. And let's just do a 15-minute break, bathroom break, snack break, all that stuff. Busy Birds Bummers. I said Birds Hummer. Birds Hummer says thumbs up on your presentation. Larry Vogel Art says loving it, Rob. And yeah, and any questions or comments, you know, the chat box is your friend. I'm going to bring back up Rob's information. And let's do the 15-minute break. And I'm going to start it now. And we'll be back in 15. Now we'll mute my microphone temporarily. And we'll be back. All right, it is that time. Awesome.
All right. It is time.
Okay, so before
Awesome. All right. It is time. Getting some echoes there.
that's
Getting some
weird.
echoes there.
That's coming from your end, isn't it?
That's weird. Echoes there. That's coming from your end, isn't it? That's echoes there.
Robert, I
That's
think that's hey,
That's echoes there. That's
hold on a minute.
that's
Yeah, that's coming from your end.
hold on a minute. Yeah, that's coming from your end. Hold on a minute. Yeah, that's coming from your end.
Okay. Oh, Robert, are you there?
Oh,
I'm not hearing Robert, you're muted.
yeah, I don't think it's coming from me. I muted my microphone and it's I don't think it's coming
It's
from
your
me. I muted my microphone and
interesting. Hold on a minute.
interesting. Hold on a minute.
Oh, I know what it is. I know what it is. Sorry about that, guys.
I know what it is.
Okay, got it. That should take care of it. Cool. All right. Sorry about that. That was an accidental login from another page. All right. So before we go forward, I put up here a link to Rob's show. He's got a new show coming up in the gallery, and if you actually go to that link, let me actually go to the page that it will open up to. There it is. So it's the Gallery 2020 exhibition. I think the deadline is going to be Rob, you there?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Deadline's going to be what's the date?
I think it's is it the 24th? Let me see.
24th. Yes, entry deadline.
Midnight, June 24th.
Yeah, yeah, June 24th, midnight.
The next show runs from July 18th to October 17th. We do quarterly shows.
Right. And actually, what's nice about this is it's $35 and you get to submit up to 3 pieces. Correct? And that's an incredible deal. And then if you want more, it's $10 per piece. So that's a wonderful deal. And that's great for the community of people who want to share their work at the gallery there. And the shows are actually wonderful. What's happening in Oceanside here, everybody, is that these tech institutions are turning their spaces into little galleries. So we get them the combination of tech institutions and galleries popping up all over the place. And I consider Robert as one of those. He's retired now from his business, but he wanted to continue his business as a legitimate gallery. So definitely get involved with this. So I will, just for your convenience, I will post the link in there again inside a Twitch chat box. And you've got it right there, okay, for those who are just coming in. So go submit your work, $35, and you submit online, your JPEG image online, and if it is accepted, you can frame the piece or bring the frame piece in on the day of delivery, and you will be notified about all that. Okay, so I guess let's go on and start off with your next presentation. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to now share your screen backstage. And take it away.
Okay, so we looked at some of the images and how that result from these processes. And as I said, I've kind of split these for discussion's sake into 4 categories that are all related to each other. There's color supersaturation. I should call this really selective color development. I sometimes refer to it as color enhancement or colorization. It's really selective colorization. There's contrast inversion, and then the creation of a technique for creating single image, high dynamic range photos. So one of the problems that we face with as photographers is that the dynamic range of the human eye is far beyond anything that we have available to us with our commercially available cameras. So here's a picture on the patio of my house. I actually live in La Jolla now, and this was taken with a cell phone. A cell phone by default creates an HDR image, so you get something closer to reality. That's why they look so darn good, really. It says f1.8, f1 2300th of a second, but I believe it's a composite of multiple images. I'm not sure exactly how they do it. I think it's multiple images at different shutter speeds. But in any case, it looks, what you see with the human eye is even more than that. And with my expensive Leica cameras, if you want to be able to see what's actually happening, this is with the 21 millimeter lens. In the dark areas here, you see the wood now. It completely blows out the highlights. And if you, so that's, I'm leaving all these at f16, and that's a 13th of a second. If I go down a couple clicks, I'm starting to lose the information in the top, but I'm able to see something now at 1/80th of a second in the background, the sky. It's still completely kind of washed out. If you look at the histogram over here, it's telling the story about what's happening. You see the histogram sort of spread out in the low lights here. So the low values are visible as we go to higher shutter speeds. The pixels are shifting. If you watch the histogram from the right to the left, we're still getting some clipping of the upper areas, and we have pretty much no information visual now in the shadows. Here at 1/400th of a second, the sky is actually starting to look a little bit blue, and it doesn't look like there's any more clipping on the histogram. Here at even higher shutter speeds, we're starting to get a little better blue resolution in the sky. If you drop all the way down to 1,000th of a second or 1,600th of a second, we're getting a better blue color in the sky because it's in the middle ranges now. So the highs are here in the middle in the histogram, but all the rest of our pixels are kind of bound up in the back here, and we can't see anything in the plants. We can't really see any detail in the shadows at all. So when I expose a picture, I don't want to lose I want to lose as little information as possible. So, sorry. I tend to underexpose it and pick settings that capture all the light pixels here in the beginning, and I'm going to let the pixels get stacked up here at the bottom into the scale. So if we then take this into Photoshop, so on my Mac it's just Command E. We can start to modify the image. I think, let's see, I think the first thing I'd like to do is the color super saturation. So I'm going to go back to here and to sort of follow the process that I had when I was first learning these things or first exploring them. That I want to make this thing look blue. The Lightroom's pretty self-explanatory. We can go to the develop mode. And then here's the color mixer. We see that I want the sky to be blue. So let's just turn the saturation of blue and see what happens. Well, that's a little better. But it's really not all that blue. So then I said, well, let's take that blue image into Photoshop and see. Here's the original. Here's one that's colorized a little blue. I started fiddling around with various things. And let's face it, Photoshop is hard to use. There's a steep learning curve to getting involved with it. I was just stumbling around, said, forget it. I'm just going to close the image out. We'll save it. Maybe I changed it a little bit. Go back to Lightroom. It should have popped up. Yes, so now this is, what's happened is Photoshop has actually modified the image. So when the image came back, it came back as a TIFF file. It was edited. It's not exactly the same. So Photoshop takes it from camera raw, like I shoot everything in camera raw, and converts it into a format that it can utilize. And when it saves it, by default, it saves it here as a TIFF file. And look, if I go back to the develop mode in Lightroom, all my sliders are back set to 0. So I can make it look bluer again. And now I'm actually getting some intense blues out of the sky. And we can do that again if we want and go back, edit the picture in Photoshop. Just close Photoshop out. Command W does that. Head back to Lightroom. This is now been saved as an additional image, so it's resaved it as edit to edit. And if I want, I can go back to the develop mode, and my sliders are all back to 0. I can saturate it again. And so now I'm getting some really crazy blue sky out of this thing, and you can just kind of keep doing this as much as you like. Go into Photoshop, close it out. It resaves it as a new TIFF file. Here back in Lightroom. This is let's take a look at it now. It's edit to edit, edit. It's brought my sliders all back to 0. I can make it blue again. And so the super saturated blue skies that you saw in some of those geometric photos were created in this way. And so here we have now this really intense blue sky, and it doesn't look so crazy. Although if there's areas where the light has reflected off of something, here the signpost, it now looks blue. Here's the reflection on the top of the post is blue. And you can see there's some information here now that we have that we didn't. The light is a different quality on these are glass panels where the plants are in the way. They're either absorbing the blues in the light or they're reflecting the blue. And you get this spectrum here. You can see the light sort of peeking through in some areas around. There's a rose bush on the other side of these, of here that's coming through. So I haven't really done anything to any of the other colors, but we've super saturated the blue. And so that's what I call color super saturation. There might be an easier way to achieve this or a different way to achieve this with Photoshop in a single step. I'm not aware of that, but this is kind of what I came up with. So that's one of the techniques, and that's pretty straightforward. Let's go back, see where we are now. Where are you? So, so here in our series now, we went, if this is the original, I think here's the original image. Here was the modified one, one step, another step, and a third step. And you can just kind of keep doing that all day if you want. And make those blues more intense. So that's color super saturation in a nutshell. Another thing that we can do, making the picture into an HDR. I can demonstrate that with this image as well. So here, 1/640th of a second. We've got a little bit of the blue. We basically don't have any information left here in the top at all. We take this into Photoshop. And for that, I will usually, my process, I'll usually give the levels curve a look. There's no reason not to bring this up to here. I can clip a little bit of the highs if we want. You can, if you like, spread out the moderates so the information is there. You can see it, but the technique, I usually leave this alone. You might modify it if you like. If the pixels are really densely packed at the low end of the scale, you can use the middle slider there. But generally speaking, I just move the upper one to brighten things up a bit with levels. Then the next step, I'll go to curves, and we just kind of blow up the lower end of the curve. So I'll put an anchor down here and drag the curve function up. Depending on how you align this peak with the peak there, you can bring the natural colors back. And then I'll reorient the rest of the curve with the place where it's supposed to be. So it did give us in these some middle tones some kind of crazy colors out here, but you see we've enhanced all this stuff and brought it into view. And then just sort of straighten this out. So then we'll accept that. And I like to save this in Lightroom, so I'll close the image out and save it from Photoshop. Takes a second to save it there. We'll go back to Lightroom. Here's the image has popped up. So now I'm going to gather that image and the original image, take them both into Photoshop. Edit a copy, sure. Here are the two images. We're just going to select all of this, Command A, copy it, Command C, go back to the original image and paste that layer on top. I don't think I copied it. There it is on top. Look over here, we've got our two layers. The blend mode is normal, so you're seeing only the top image. If I shut it off, we see only the bottom image. The masks that I use most often are Luminosity. If I go to the Luminosity mode, there we've got this sort of solarized single image HDR. I tend not to leave the opacity at 100%, kind of turn it down a little bit, whatever looks good to you. And then you can do further manipulations of brightness and contrast and whatnot. But so we've teased out all this information in here in a single image. And why it might be nice to do single image HDR is because now you can take a picture at 1,000th of a second of a moving subject, for example, and get still against a bright background, for example, and still get all the details out. So the other filter that I use sometimes is dissolve at a very low level. If you do dissolve at 100%, you just see your image. So you have to turn it down to some degree, and I usually turn it way down to something like less than 5 or 6%. It gives this kind of interesting effect. I have a picture that I'm still kind of working on where I've done this to create what looks like Christmas trees. You've got bright snow and black trees that are in the shadows because the light is behind them. You take the low lights, you separate it into a spectrum of colors, and then drop the opacity down. Now it looks like the tree is full of Christmas lights. So you get this kind of interesting effect. And you could see this in those pictures of the desert. That's what I've done there. So if you like, didn't get much color out of this one, but are unusual colors. And it's kind of the way you construct that curves function. So once you're done with it, I just close it out. Yes, we're going to save it. Go back to Lightroom. And there it is. It doesn't look like it. There we go. And you see, if you zoom out, you don't really see this pixelation very much. So if you like this image and you kind of say, hey, well, there are some of the spectrum of colors in here, but I can't see them. So now we could do color supersaturation to bring these colors out, develop them further. So we've got this, kind of a pink and a yellow and a green. They're all sort of in there. And I haven't tried this with this image, but we can just see. And when I do this, I'll usually just throw everything up and see what happens. At this point, you might want to create some more sophisticated masks. But you can see now that intensified the colors. And if we take this back into, I'm not going to create any more sophisticated masks at the moment, but this is just to show you my process and how I think through these things sometimes. So I might take another look at levels here. Let's adjust, see what we can get out of adjusting the brightness. So we're starting to get more of a palette of colors here. Okay, our brighter, more intense colors. Let's close this out and go back to Lightroom. And there's the processed image. My sliders are all back. I can just push them all up. And in my process, if I'm doing this, this is what I did to the pictures of the over there where the white brick wall where you saw those intense colors. So I had primarily white in the background, so I wasn't worried about that. And I just kept developing it here and making those colors more and more intense. I didn't use the dissolve function for that, but I just wanted to say if you're doing this technique and you look back, it's like, gee, I don't really like this yellow and orange in here. I'm going to take some of that out, but I still wanted my blue. And you just keep going back and forth. So these dots are getting a little more intense. Maybe I took too much yellow out. I want to see them a little better. And you can super saturate their colors and get them to a level that you like. So that's enough with that. When I go back to Photoshop, I like to clean them up. I've already got this image, so I'm not going to save it. I've got this image, so I'm not going to save that. I don't got that image. I don't need to save that. So let's try that again with something a little different. And I asked myself early on, if there's like when we saw the blue develop in some areas and not in others, well, white light is supposed to be made up of different colors. What happens if we look at a white light and we just try that super saturation with this? So this image illustrates a couple things. When I expose my images, I try not to clip too much in the highs. I'm looking straight into a bright light here. So I'm bound to lose some information right there in the center. And I'm trying to find images that have a nice clean buildup of pixels in the lower values. So let's try these techniques on this image. I'll go back into Photoshop. Oh, sorry, actually, I wanted to, before I do that, I like these kind of sun stars. You don't get them much at f3.4. So let's reshoot this image at f22 over 6 seconds, and then we get a nice star. And I wanted to point out something that I really like about prime lenses is that they give you, the way I tend to, part of my process, I will often, when I shoot with the primes, I'll often set my depth of field scale carefully to give me everything in the photo in focus. So here, I just wanted to show you what a wide angle lens will do for you. We don't see this information much anymore, but at f16, here it is right on the lens. If I move the focus wheel to infinity at f16, I can see very quickly that everything from about 25 feet to infinity is going to be in focus. If we move to a 50 millimeter lens, we get a broader range, a depth of field here. Now everything from, at f16, everything from infinity to around a little less than 10 feet is going to be in focus. A 35 millimeter lens gives me much better depth of field. At f16, everything from infinity to a little under 4 feet is in focus. And with the 21 at f16, everything is in infinity from here. Actually, the scale is on the other side of the lens. There's 2.5 feet, and it's not even marked anymore what it is. It's
kind of nice to see this on the Leica lenses, because in modern digital lenses we don't have these markings anymore.
No, I know, and I really miss them on the current lenses.
Now my Fuji cameras got them. The Fuji lenses has them, and that's my medium format digital camera. They've got them, but not a lot of the 35s just got rid of them.
And it's really easy to compose with these lenses. So, for example, if maybe you don't have infinity in your picture in these indoor shots, I want to get everything in focus, but I don't need infinity. So I'll focus on something that's the furthest away. I'll look where it appears on the focusing wheels of, hey, the furthest thing in my photo is 8 feet. I'll then move 8 feet over. Maybe I'm not shooting at f16. I can just slide the wheels over here, and then I know even here at f 5.6, everything from infinity to 4 feet on a 21 millimeter lens is in focus. But what I wanted to point out here is that wherever the focus near point is, it's super close, and I think it's only a couple inches away from the lens. So you can, at f16, if you have enough light, you can just leave these manual focus lenses on focused like this and walk around and take pictures, and pretty much everything is in focus. It's not optimal. If you look at the technical description of what how these depth of field scales were created, it has to do with the size, kind of average size of images that we would look at and average distances we would see them from. Obviously, if you're looking at an image from across the room, you're not going to be able to see if it's in focus or blurry, and so on. So there is an optimal focus point, and it's at the center. And it's just something to keep in mind. If you use this technique, you actually are a bit sharper wherever the lens is actually in focus. And these are just norms that were calculated, but they're a good way to go. And I like to do that. And then here I'm just showing this modern zoom like a lens. It's just gone. The information's not there anymore. There's two focusing wheels, or there's a focusing wheel that doesn't do anything most of the time when you have the camera in autofocus, and then the zoom wheel, and that's all.
And a friend of mine has this Leica camera, and it's heavy, right?
It's very heavy, yeah.
It's very heavy. So it surprised me.
It's very heavy. You could use it as a weapon if you needed to. But here, so I like. But what I wanted to, why I kind of did that little description is that, look here, there's very little, if any, sensor dust visible in this photograph. But when I drop down to f/22, I can actually see now sensor dust all over the place. And this is what this is. We're actually focusing on the sense. We're getting it there. It's blurry, but you can see the sensor dust. And here was a picture taken just, a few seconds earlier at f/3.4, and here it is again at f/22. But it gives you this nice star separation. And so we've got a nice separation of the peaks here on the histogram. So let's take this image into Photoshop, and I guess I'll start with the HDR type technique. I go to first the levels. That's actually pretty good. I'm not gonna change that any. Then next I'll go to curves, and you can see there's nice separation of these. If I want, I can just take the very lowest values and anchor this thing. Sometimes it's a little hard to grab it sometimes. And spread it all out. I can, if I don't want to include this area, this little shows you where you are. I can kind of take it out. I can't include it. Let's just take it out. I'm going to spread this out a little bit, and then we'll bring the rest of the curve back up to where it was in normal. Now, sometimes I'll create multiple peaks here if I want to bring out highlight stuff like this. But look, there's visual information in here that wasn't visible before. That's okay. Let's take it and then close out the image and save it. So I have a copy in Lightroom. So now let's select that image and the one it came from, take them both into Photoshop. We're gonna select all of this, copy it, go over to the other image, paste it on top, and then move to the luminosity blend mode. And now voila, I have a single image HDR. There's some details in here that we weren't able to see. There's some flare. There's this was a vestibule. This is actually the ceiling here, and here's another wall coming down. You couldn't see any of that before. You don't always need 100% opacity. This 100% opacity setting is usually where I'm getting that, what I've been calling contrast inversion. Might turn it down a little bit and then increase the overall brightness. But we've got all kinds of things happening in this image now. And we can see hidden details in here that we couldn't before, including flare of the lens. There was none of which was visible. And we've even got sensor dust for what it's worth. So I'm happy with that. Close it out, save it. And then when I like to keep this cleaned up. I don't need to save this. I already have a copy of it. And then I wanted to show you how we've uncovered hidden information in the dark parts of the picture. Here's the original image again. I keep forgetting to saturate it, so I'm going to close this, don't save. I wanted to do the super saturation technique on this picture as well, just to kind of demonstrate one other thing. So we'll go to develop. It's just going to turn up all of the colors here to 100% saturation. And you can see a little bit of color development kind of happening now. So let's take this into Photoshop, Command E, close it back down, save it. Go over to let's do it again. And I'm just turning the saturation up of these colors. And you notice we're getting all kinds of colors now and bands of colors. I will usually look at this and kind of make a determination. I think often yellow and orange seem to be too much. So we turn that down a little bit, turn them down to see what happens. So the reds come out a little more interesting the way they're coming out here. So it was mostly orange that was bothering me. Blue's a little crazy. If we take the blue out a bit, we start to see some more yellows and green over here. The flare is turning into a whole spectrum of color now. Let's go back into Photoshop. Close it back out, back into Lightroom. So give us our sliders back. And let's try it again. Turn all the saturations up to 100. Now it's really crazy looking. Again, I feel like it's got too much magenta in it. Turn that down. Turn the red's a little crazy. So anyway, you get the idea. Maybe I think there's too much yellow again. So take some of the yellow out, or some of the orange out rather. And we're getting this whole spectrum of like splashes of color now. And all we've been doing is manipulating the saturation. So all those colors, all that color information is there in your picture. We're just kind of teasing it out. And then this has such nice separation. You can combine the techniques. We can take this one now and we'll take a look at where we are on levels. Levels still is fine. I'm just going to leave that alone. We can go back to the curves function. This peak is really nicely isolated, so I want to grab in between the anchors. Stretch this out. So I'm looking over here primarily. If we put the dropper down, you can see on the where it shows up. There's a look at the panel here. When I put my dropper different places, you can see where those pixels are. It's actually better if I bring this up back to normal. So here you see, if I wanted to do something with these pixels, these got changed in their color a little bit. They're over there. So if I don't want those to be involved, I can slide this over this way a bit. Let's bring these back to baseline. You have to kind of, Curves doesn't seem to want you to do this. So you have to kind of wrestle with it a little bit, get it back to where it was going to be. And I'm kind of liking this effect here. So anyway, you can see how you fiddle around with this. Where is that occurring? That's occurring down there. If I don't want it, so I want to take this little thing out. Like I said, it's a little bit of a wrestling match to get it out of there. That actually looks kind of interesting. So anyway, you get the idea. We've you can combine the techniques if you want, and then I'll go back and save it. Save it. Let's head back. Let this go back to the library. Let's try and see what happens. Where's my Lightroom? If we take that image and the original into Photoshop, it's not quite the original. That's one that we boosted the color a little bit, but anyway, we can take this, we can copy it, paste it on top, go back to luminosity, blend mode, and we've got this kind of crazy looking image. So anyway, where I can usually combine them more is if I'm using the dissolve function and I want to super saturate the images. But here, and if you decrease the, now that we've got this strange little pattern developing around the light. So anyway, just this is not going to get published anywhere, but in any case, that kind of gives you an idea of the process. And it's not, you don't always have success, but I capture images thinking about how I'm going to process. I look at the histogram, and here's another example of an image from Hawaii. This is first time trying this, so let's see what happens here. The levels looks okay. Adjustment, I'm going to go to curves. A real nice separation between the peaks here. Let's see. These dark areas are all on this lower peak. So let's lift this up here. And if you bring the peak in front of the curves peak in front of the other one, you tend to get boosting of many of the natural colors. So here, I'm just going to tighten this up so it's not affecting this area up here. Now I bend the curves function back to normal. That's pretty good. If you drop all the way to the bottom here, you get this sort of black outline. I'm going to just run with that for now. That's fine. I've brought all this color information out of here. Let's go and save it. Close that image out. Go back to, I'm gonna close these and don't save them just to get them off of my screen here. Go back to light room. Let's grab both of these images, take them into Photoshop. And then we're going to select all, copy, paste it on top. And so this is just the normal filter you're seeing. You might stop here. You might, not even forget the background image. It's kind of interesting what we've done. But if you want that sort of solarized look, you go back to the luminosity function. And now it's kind of nice here. We have this sort of black and white and contrast, almost like a white and black image. You can decrease the opacity a little bit if you like. I actually like that sort of at 100% opacity. So now I've got a single image HDR. I never would have been able to capture these highlights here without it. And there's a little bit of the green information coming through. Here was that one. I already have it, so I'm going to close it and don't save it. Go back to Lightroom Classic. And so let's see here. Here was my original. Here was the colorized version. And here is the contrast inverted version. So just, and I've preserved, I haven't really changed anything. It's a little darker than in the original, maybe over here, but I really haven't changed any of the information here. And it allows us to get this nice exposure of the setting sun. So I can do a couple more of these if you want to see. Here's, I haven't worked with this image before either. It's also at La Jolla Shores. I've got a nice sun star. It's underexposed. There's a lot of stuff going on down here. I can't remember what these people were doing here. So let's go find out. Again, look first on levels. That's actually pretty good. You can open this up a little bit more to try to spread these peaks out. So we'll try that with this image. Now I go to curves. It spread the peaks out a bit more. I want to develop these people down here. And they're all way at the bottom of the curve. So we were spread things out a little bit more. Let's try taking just the low, very low stuff end here. And look at that. We're getting all kinds of colors coming out on them. There's color information in there, even though we couldn't see it. Let's bring this back up to the other areas, back to normal. In the darker areas of the image, we do have some colors here. You could mask that out if you wanted. In the simple techniques that I've developed here, I've just kind of leave it at that. Let's say, okay, let's close this out, go back to Lightroom. Grab the original and this image. And there's other ways to do that, but this is just kind of the process I've developed over the years. Let's select it all, we'll copy it. Let's go to we're going to paste it on top of this image. I don't know why my copy sometimes doesn't copy. There's the paste. And then let's go to luminosity, blend mode. We've developed some of my spots on the sensor become visible. I'm actually kind of liking this sort of solarized look, but let's try decreasing the opacity and see what happens. I'm a little more partial to that, maybe like at 50%, 60%. Let's close this now, save it. Go back to Lightroom. Here it is. Actually, what I want to show you is how I've kind of masked them. So let's go back. Take these two images into Photoshop again. I'm going to select this, copy, paste. Move to the luminosity mask, or blend mode rather. And so let's create a layer mask here. And this sort of picture-in-picture thing, my tools are missing, so bring them over. And I've just been using a square grab tool, so we can grab these guys and their reflection. Let's see, I'm going to slide this up a little bit. Oh, that's not helpful. Let's undo the move. Try that again. Let's make a little bigger rectangle. I'm sure. And then let's invert. We're working now in the layer mask is highlighted over here. So we're working on the layer mask. Let's inverse our selection. And then we'll grab the paint bucket tool with black, and we'll fill black into there. So now if you look at the layer mask, the only thing that's visible in the top processed image is this little area up here. We'll deselect. I'll take that back into Photoshop. And that's how I've created some of those other images with the layer mask. So now, here was our original. This was the colorized version, if you will. Here's the color inverted version, and here's with the two put together. Now we've got this little square in here kind of telling a separate story. This is obviously needs to be brightened and worked on a little bit. But you get the idea. I like to brighten in Photoshop, so does have a dust removal tool, which is really great. So it gives you some idea what I do with my process. And let's see here. I think I have a little bit more, if anybody's still awake. I wanted to say you end up trying. Sometimes you don't feel bad about experimenting. In this image, I was actually trying to write with the moon. This was a picture of what was actually happening on that night. I said, I'm going to try to use this as a pen and see if I can write. I think I was trying to write. I kind of got my out there a little bit. I was struggling. I don't know what word that's supposed to be. It's not really a word. I was actually able to get the stuff centered. This is a 32-second exposure. And then I think I pointed the camera back at the house here to get that colored background. I said, maybe I can draw with it. So I tried to draw a flower Doesn't really look like a flower. I was getting frustrated, so I was just throwing things all around. So what about a spiral? Maybe I can make a spiral. It wasn't great. I made a better spiral, but it wasn't centered. Then a plane flew over, and the plane was had some blinking lights on it. So oh, that was kind of cool. And wouldn't you know it, then a biplane flew by with a couple of lights on. And so I was actually, at this point, I was just sort of dancing around and just completely screwing, turning the shutter on and off for 32-second exposures, and just sort of dancing to a Ray Lowentosh song. And the biplane flew in. And so I was good enough at it at that point. I traced the biplane, and then I processed the image. And this is how I tried to bring more definition to the moon streak out by enhancing the middle versions, the middle values of the curves function. So that gave me this. And then I put that together with the original image and cropped it and came up with this. So keep trying. Here was another image that I think worked well from that session. It's so very abstract and wouldn't really know what it was, but this using the same techniques, and then here converting to a black and white image. So here's my current kit with my birding lens and a 1.4x converter. I'm about to go on a vacation to Europe. I don't want to carry all this stuff around. You're right, the Leica lenses are extremely heavy, but I've consolidated my primes into a zoom. I'm going to try that on our next trip. And I even got a new hat. So thank you for your attention. I don't really have anything more. If you guys, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And here again is my contact information.
All right, so there's a comment by Larry Vogel, Vogel Art. Great examples of creativity born through the curiosity of play.
Thank you, Larry. I should say that all the Pismo Beach pictures were taken on a photographic course or trip to Pismo Beach that Larry hosts every year, and I went on that. And it's time for me to start learning a little bit more about Photoshop. So I'm sure that
yeah, we got the beginning Photoshop class. I actually put a little comment up here. 5-week introduction to Photoshop class, August 20th. So that begins after the fair ends. So the fair ends around July 4th, and that class is going to be full. I may have to end up doing 2 of those because I'm also one of the judges at the Santa International Photography Exhibition, and I'm also a presenter there. So that they usually fill up pretty quickly. So we're going to make sure we're going to get you in that class, Robert, and many others. There you are. There's the link. Yeah, Photoshop is important. It's our new digital darkroom now. Although we have Lightroom is a database management program, and it's designed to help you to kind of organize, keep track of all your images, and then it also has some raw editing features in it. But your real vision is going to be created in Photoshop. So both are often used by photographers, but your strength should be in Photoshop. So you will have an opportunity to take the workshop. So there you are. So yeah, now we also mentioned about your show, the gallery show. Let me actually bring that back up real quick. Jury art show. In fact, I may still have it up on the page. There we go. Actually, let me share my screen real quick. I'm going to remove your screen and add mine. We've got your show, the Juried Exhibition show, and for those who just logged into Twitch, I'm going to paste this link for your convenience. There we go. There. Okay. So, all right. So let's paste the link again. get involved in the show. I think many of us here are, basically are showing our work already in other places. So let's just show the strength of the Photoshop users group and submit your work to these shows. These shows happen. What are they? They're quarterly.
We're doing
Robert?
quarterly shows now, yeah, in conjunction with Larry's digital photo
Right.
exchange. And Larry and I have been uh, dividing up the workload. This and
Right. Larry Vogel actually runs, basically manages it. Correct.
Well, I manage it, and then we've got a partnership. It's
Okay.
it's a real partnership. I'm the juror of the shows, and um,
And Larry is here, by the way. If anybody has any questions, he's
I
right there. That's his little comment there. Larry Vogel art.
while Larry and his wife Barb are accepting the artworks coming in, I'm around hanging the show, and then Larry and I kind of fine tune it together, and um, so it's been a partnership, and it's been successful. He advertises to his group, I advertise to mine,
And also the mine as well. So
yeah, the more people, the merrier. And we will sometimes do solo shows as well. And it's not always photography, but I'm concentrating on photography. And there's not, we don't have a lot of venues for photography based art, and um, I'm liberal in the sense that we encourage uh, people who are experimenting. I mean, I can't really tell people not to, since
right, we did a digital art show not too long ago, and that was for people who are doing like digital painting and photographic compositing. There was a theme specifically for digital art. We did
yeah,
not too
we've
long
had
ago.
different themes over the years, and in general, we would try to pick themes that allow people to choose their best work.
Hmm.
So for example, Larry came up with the title for the current show of "What a Beautiful World," and
Right.
we'd like to have, you know, we'd rather get you giving us what you feel is your best art, and not trying to fit something into, we want pictures that involve sunsets on the pier or something. I don't, or it has to have something that shows generosity or something. And a lot of times you'll go to these sites, and there'll be a theme, and you're thinking about your body of work and what do I have that I can jam into that theme. I'd rather have you thinking about what are my best works, and is there some, can I, you know, it's usually the one that you're working on right now, right? Or your favorite pieces, and
Right.
what are you doing that's creative or different, and we're giving you a venue to do that. If you're using AI, we're not going to throw you out. If you're using, this, that, or the other program, or if you're painting on top of your photographs, that's fine. So whatever you're doing that's creating art, and the only limitation being that we're sort of leaning towards photographic based art.
Okay. Yeah. No, I've been to many of the shows. They're very well done. The artists that are submitting are pretty are they have a master, I would say, mastered their craft. They're accomplished artists. So yeah, get involved, everybody. And love to see you in the show on the walls. Anything else we should share, Robert?
No, I think that sounds good.
Okay. All right.
Thank
So,
you for hanging in
Robert,
there, everybody. Thank you, Stephen,
yeah,
again for inviting me. Yeah, I'm not an expert on Photoshop, but I've had quite a bit of success with my photographs, or whatever they are. So they do kind of fall through a crack. You know,
right.
they're modified to the extent that they don't necessarily qualify as photography. So, for example, I've had much better success in the fine art division of the fair.
Hmm.
I've actually won quite a few awards, but there aren't too many. There's only two categories that really even apply. They have a digital art category, and they have a non-representational category. So,
Yeah, they've opened up about that. I know quite some time they frowned on the digital art, especially the digital art done in the computer. And now I think they've opened up quite a bit about that.
But so most of the categories are like oil and acrylic and
Right, for the
landscape or something.
right, which is right below the photography exhibition at the Del Mar Fairgrounds.
But the photographer exhibition is very limiting in my mind, and I don't like this being jammed into a 16 by 20. And
Well, it's necessary. We're the remember, it's the largest exhibition in the United States. We're the biggest.
is that right?
Yes, we are the largest. This year, I don't think you are aware of this. This year, we broke our records for the amount of submissions. Submissions in previous years were around 3,600 submissions. We were at 4,600 this year. We're 1,000 more than any previous year. So it is the largest in the country. And the way to accommodate artists hanging on a wall is to limit the sizes to 16 by 20. I used to be the coordinator. Right after Donna Cosentino stepped down, I was a coordinator for 2 years. After me, it was Georgia. After Georgia, it was her assistant. Oh my gosh, why am I forgetting his name? Larry, remember, he'll post in the chat box or something. After that was Jean, and then after Jean was is currently Lois.
No, I understand, but I'm just saying that in what I'm doing here, it's not necessary. It falls in between. Certainly not traditional kind of nature photography.
But what you're doing is
I'm not using oil, acrylic, or watercolor, so it's not necessarily art. But I've had far more success. I've won numerous awards in the art division, and I some time ago I had some I've won some awards in photography as well, but had far better success in the art world. And like I said, a lot of times people will look at my images and say they like my painting. So they have a lot of them have a kind of a painterly quality about them, and
they really do. I think there's remember as photographers, our craft doesn't come from photography. It comes from the master painters, the master sculptors, and I see that some of those thought philosophies in your work, which I think makes it stronger.
So in any case, yeah, I know you guys have a Herculean job there trying to sort through 4,000 or 5,000 pictures and pick
about
up
44 judges altogether. Yeah, it's a big job.
I've got a couple images in the fair if you want to drop by. And
so now the opening, everybody who's still here, opening is next week, Friday. For the San Diego International, well, the fairgrounds opens I think earlier, but I think
the fair opens on the 10th, and the artist reception in the fine arts department is at 6:30 on June 11th.
June 11th. So that is.
I'm not sure if that overlaps with the photographer's reception.
That's Thursday. So that's next Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. I'm pretty sure I'll be there. Well, actually, no, I won't be. I have to teach class that night.
But I don't know if that's the same night as the photographers award exhibition. I think it.
I think no.
It has been in the past.
Okay. I thought you were looking at the brochure. So.
No. I was just looking at my. I just know the fine art exhibition. It was going to be on the. It was moved recently to.
I'll double check.
Thursday the 11th at 6:30.
Right, I'll double check. I thought we shared the same date with the fine art downstairs.
I think so too. I actually haven't submitted to the fair for a few years, and I decided to do it again this year. So.
All right. So sdfair.com for anybody. Actually, yeah, sdfair.com. Go check it out. The calendar should be there. All right. I'm going to.
Thanks again, Steven.
Well, everybody on Twitch, thank you for joining us. We'll be back again next Saturday for a 3D broadcast in Blender 3D. And what I'm going to do, and thank you for joining us all. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to end the stream.